Daniel Harper stood in the grand chamber and tried not to feel small. The room stretched above him like a canyon made of light. Walls of pure crystal rose higher than any building on Earth, pulsing with colors he had no names for. Delegates from across the galaxy filled the space, their forms as varied as their worlds. Some floated in containment fields, bodies made of living energy that sparked and shifted. Others towered on multiple legs, their crystalline bodies catching the light and throwing rainbows across the floor. A few delegates looked almost normal until they moved, revealing joints that bent in impossible directions, or skin that changed texture like water. Lisa Morgan stood beside Daniel, her hands clasped behind her back in a pose that looked calm. He knew better. They had worked together for 5 years, designing structures that pushed the limits of what people thought possible. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her jaw was set just a little too tight. "We're last," she whispered. "Dead last on the schedule." Daniel nodded. He had seen the agenda. 23 species would present before Earth got its turn. The message was clear. The Galactic Architectural Council did not expect much from humanity. Ambassador Krell clicked his way to the center platform. The insectoid's body gleamed like polished bronze, each of his 6 legs moving with precise coordination. His compound eyes swept the room, reflecting hundreds of tiny images of the gathered delegates. "We gather again," Krell's voice came through the translation field, surprisingly warm for a creature with mandibles instead of a mouth. "Another cycle. Another chance to share the wonders we have built. Our cities define us. They show the galaxy what we value, what we have achieved." The first presentation began. A species called the Ven showed images of their capital city. Towers of living crystal grew from the ground, each one a perfect geometric shape. The structures sang to each other, the Ven delegate explained, creating harmonies that could be felt across their entire world. No 2 crystals ever touched. Each stood alone, beautiful and pure. Daniel watched the images shift and flow. He had to admit the city was stunning, but something bothered him about it. The spaces between the towers were empty. No parks, no gathering places. Just perfect crystal spires rising from bare stone. More presentations followed. The Korath showed their floating cities. Massive platforms that drifted through the clouds of a gas giant. Entire populations lived their whole lives without ever touching solid ground. The structures rotated constantly, using the planet's magnetic fields for power. A species made entirely of energy displayed their home. It existed in 7 dimensions at once, folding through space in ways that made Daniel's head hurt to look at. They had no need for walls or roofs. Their city was pure mathematics made visible. Each species claimed their approach was superior. The crystal builders said organic materials were crude and temporary. The energy beings dismissed anything with physical form as primitive. The floating city architects insisted that being bound to a planet's surface showed a lack of vision. Through it all, Daniel noticed a pattern. Every presenter talked about efficiency, about perfection, about the triumph of their particular method over all others. None of them talked about the people who lived in these places. Hours passed. Daniel's feet hurt from standing. His translator earpiece buzzed with words and concepts that did not quite fit into human language. Beside him, Lisa took notes on her datapad, her expression carefully neutral. Finally, a delegate named Zorthak stepped forward. His crystalline body caught the light, sending shards of rainbow color across the chamber. He was Ven, one of the Crystal City builders, and his presentation had been scheduled right before Earth's. "Before we hear from our newest members," Zorthak's tone carried something that the translator rendered as amusement, "I wish to address a concern. We have reviewed Earth's submission materials. Their cities use stone, metal, glass, even wood, a material that decays and must be replaced. A ripple of reaction moved through the chamber. Several delegates made sounds that the translator interpreted as disbelief. Their structures touch the ground, Zorthak continued. They are built in areas prone to destruction, geological instability, atmospheric chaos. It seems our human friends have not yet learned the basic principles of permanent construction. Lisa's hand found Daniel's arm, her grip tight. He patted her fingers once, a silent message. Stay calm. Let them talk. Perhaps, another delegate spoke up, this one a being that looked like living mercury. Earth simply lacks the resources for proper city building. Some worlds are poor in materials. We should not judge them too harshly for their limitations. Most generous of you, Krell said, his mandibles clicking in a pattern that might have been laughter. Well then, let us see what our human friends have brought to share. Delegate Harper, Delegate Morgan, the floor is yours. Daniel walked to the center platform. The eyes of the galaxy watched him. He could feel their skepticism like a weight on his shoulders. They expected nothing. They had already decided Earth's cities were primitive, limited, unworthy of serious consideration. The hologram expanded until it filled the entire chamber. The delegates found themselves standing on a virtual street in Neo-Singapore. Around them, buildings rose like trees, their surfaces covered in living green. Waterfalls cascaded down the sides of towers, feeding into channels that wound through the streets like rivers. Neo-Singapore, Lisa began, walking through the projection as if she were strolling through the actual city. Population 8 million, built on an island chain in Earth's equatorial region. The city experiences heavy rainfall, high humidity, and regular flooding from ocean tides. Then why build there? A delegate asked. The being resembled a cluster of floating spheres, each one containing what looked like a small star. Surely a stable location would be more logical. Because people already lived there, Daniel said simply. Humans have occupied that region for thousands of years. It is their home. We do not abandon our homes just because they are difficult. The view shifted, pulling back to show the city from above. The delegates could see how the structures followed the curves of the coastline. Nothing was perfectly straight or geometrically pure. The city flowed like water, adapting to the shape of the land beneath it. Watch, Lisa said. The hologram began to move through time. The tide came in, and the lower levels of the city welcomed it. Water flowed through designed channels, turning turbines that glowed with generated power. Parks became shallow pools where children played. Streets transformed into canals where boats replaced cars. Then the tide went out. The water drained away through the same channels, filtered and cleaner than when it had entered. The streets dried. The parks returned. The city breathed out what it had breathed in. Your city floods? Zorthak's crystalline body vibrated with what the translator called confusion. This is intentional? The ocean is not our enemy, Daniel replied. It is part of the system. We designed the city to work with the tides, not against them. Every building in Neo-Singapore serves multiple purposes. Housing, yes, but also air filtration, water processing, food production, heat absorption. Each structure gives back more than it takes. The view changed again. Now they stood in a different city, this one climbing the side of a mountain. Buildings emerged from the rock face like they had grown there, their shapes echoing the natural formations around them. New Denver, Lisa said, built at an elevation of nearly 3,000 meters in Earth's Rocky Mountain range. The air is thin. Temperatures swing from freezing to hot within a single day. The ground shifts regularly from geological activity. The delegates could see gardens on every roof and balcony. Trees grew from terraces carved into the mountainside. The city seemed less like a human construction and more like a natural feature of the landscape. The buildings are positioned to block wind from the residential areas, Daniel explained, but they channel that same wind through generators. Every structure collects rainwater and snowmelt. The gardens are not decoration. They produce food and oxygen while stabilizing the soil against erosion. Inefficient, muttered a delegate made of what looked like liquid metal. You waste space on plants, on aesthetics. Do we? Lisa asked. She pulled up data streams beside the image. New Denver produces 70% of its own food. It generates 115% of the power it needs, selling the excess to nearby communities. Air quality is better inside the city than in the surrounding wilderness. We have increased the local biodiversity by introducing native species to our green spaces. The mountain is healthier because we are here. A new voice spoke up. This delegate was new to the conversation, an elder being whose reptilian features bore the marks of centuries. His name, the translator offered, was Thon. You claim your cities are alive? Thon said slowly. Explain this. Daniel nodded. The view shifted to show a city floating on the ocean, not hovering above it like the Korath platforms, but resting on the surface, moving with the waves. Pacific Haven, he said, home to 2 million people. The city follows the ocean currents, traveling in a slow circle that takes 5 years to complete. It never stays in one place. The delegates watched as the floating city drifted across blue water. Beneath the surface, they could see something unexpected. The underside of the city was covered in structures that looked like coral reefs. Fish swam through them. Plants grew in dense clusters. The water around the city teemed with life. The city's foundation provides habitat for marine species, Lisa explained. We designed it to be a traveling reef. Everywhere Pacific Haven goes, it spreads life. Fish populations in its wake are 3 times higher than in open ocean. We have used this city to restore ecosystems that were nearly destroyed. But why? The question came from a delegate whose form was hard to look at directly. Existing partially in dimensions the human eye could not quite process. Why add this complexity? A city should house your people. That is its function. Is that all? Daniel asked. We believe a city should do more than just provide shelter. It should improve the lives of everyone who lives there. It should make the world around it better, not worse. It should be beautiful because beauty matters to us. It should preserve our culture while helping us grow into the future. The scene changed again. This time they stood in a city that looked ancient and futuristic at the same time. Pyramids rose from the sand, their surfaces covered in solar panels that caught the brutal desert sun. Between them, modern towers spiraled upward, their designs echoing the shapes of the old structures. Cairo knew, Lisa said with obvious pride. Built around monuments that are over 4,000 years old. Some species, we have learned, simply erase their history when they build. They tear down the old to make room for the new. Humans cannot do this. We carry our past with us. The delegates could see how the new buildings referenced the old, not copying them exactly, but honoring them. A tower might use the same angles as a pyramid. A bridge might incorporate designs from ancient temples. The solar panels on the pyramids were positioned to enhance rather than hide the original structures. The old and the new exist together, Daniel continued. The ancient pyramids now generate power for millions of people, but they are still pyramids, still monuments, still sacred to the people who built them thousands of years ago. We do not force our ancestors to choose between history and progress. We give them both. A new image appeared. This city looked different from the others. The buildings seemed to glow with a soft inner light. Their shapes changed subtly as the delegates watched, walls shifting color and texture. Mumbai Skyway, Lisa said. This is where we will end this section of our presentation. This city uses adaptive architecture. The buildings respond to the people inside them. Respond how? Asked Velthra, one of the energy beings. For the first time, the delegate sounded genuinely curious rather than dismissive. Daniel smiled. The walls adjust their opacity based on the time of day and the preference of the occupants. They change color to affect mood and health. When someone is sick, their room becomes warmer and fills with filtered air. When someone is studying, the walls absorb sound. When someone wants company, the walls become transparent so neighbors can see each other. The holographic display shifted once more. The delegates found themselves standing in a marketplace that seemed to exist in two different times at once. Ancient stone archways framed modern transit stations. Merchants sold goods from stalls that had stood in the same spots for centuries, while overhead, sleek trains moved silently on rails that seemed to float in the air. "This is still Cairo New," Lisa said, walking between virtual shoppers who moved through the scene like ghosts. "But we wanted to show you something specific. Something that matters deeply to humans but might not be obvious to other species." A woman appeared in the hologram, solid and real-looking compared to the transparent crowd around her. She was old, her face lined with decades of life under the desert sun. She sat at a loom, her hands moving with practiced ease as she wove bright threads into patterns. "This is Janet Cole," Daniel said. "She is 83 years old. Her family has been weaving in this market for 9 generations. When we rebuilt Cairo New, we could have modernized everything, made it all efficient and uniform, but we chose not to." The view pulled back. They could see Janet's shop, a small building made of the same stone as the ancient structures around it. But look closer, and the stone revealed itself to be something more. It stored solar energy. It filtered air. It regulated temperature, all while looking exactly like stone that had stood there for 1,000 years. "We preserved the soul of this place," Lisa continued. "Janet still weaves in her family's shop. Her customers still come to her, just as their grandparents came to her grandmother. But now the shop keeps her cool in summer heat. It purifies the air she breathes. It charges her tools and lights her work. The tradition continues, but the technology serves it." "This cannot be efficient," Zorthak said, but he did not sound as certain as before. "Surely mass production would be superior." "Superior at what?" Daniel asked. "At making cloth?" "Perhaps. But Janet's weavings carry 9 generations of knowledge. Each pattern has meaning. Each color choice tells a story. You cannot mass-produce culture. You cannot fabricate heritage. We preserve these things because they make us who we are." The scene changed. Now they stood in a plaza surrounded by buildings that seemed to dance with light. Music filled the air, complex and layered. People moved through the space, some hurrying to work, others stopping to listen or talk, or simply sit and watch the world go by. "Mumbai Skyway again," Lisa said. "But this time we want to focus on the social architecture. Watch the buildings." The delegates looked closer. As people moved through the plaza, the buildings responded. When a crowd gathered to listen to musicians, the walls behind them curved to amplify the sound. When a couple wanted to talk privately, a section of wall became opaque, giving them space. When children ran and played, the ground became softer, safer. "The city knows what people need before they ask for it," Daniel explained. "It reads movement patterns, sound levels, even emotional markers in how people walk and talk. Then it adjusts to serve them better." "This seems invasive," a delegate observed. The speaker was a being made of crystallized sound, vibrating with harmonics. "Does your city watch everything your people do?" "Not watch," Lisa corrected. "Respond. There is a difference. The city does not record or judge. It simply helps. If someone is lost, signs light up to guide them. If someone is in distress, the nearest medical station is alerted. If someone wants to be alone, the city gives them space and quiet." Thawne, the old reptilian delegate, moved closer to the hologram. His scaled hand passed through a virtual building, and data streams lit up around his fingers. "Remarkable," he muttered. "The processing required for this level of response must be enormous." "It is," Daniel agreed. But we think it is worth it, because at the end of the day, cities are not about buildings. They are about people. Every design choice we make starts with a question. How will this serve the humans who live here? How will it make their lives better? The view shifted to a different section of the city. Here, buildings were arranged in small clusters around central courtyards. In each courtyard, people gathered. Some were eating together. Others were working on projects, building things or growing plants. Children played while adults watched and talked. Community spaces, Lisa said. Every residential cluster in Mumbai Skyway includes shared areas like this. Places where neighbors meet naturally, where relationships form. Many species we have met prefer isolation. Individual dwellings with no interaction. We tried that approach and found it made humans sad. Sad? Velthra asked. The energy being's form flickered with interest. Your architectural choices are based on emotion? Everything we do is based on emotion, Daniel said. Humans are not purely logical creatures. We need connection. We need beauty. We need spaces that make us feel safe and welcome and inspired. A city that ignores these needs might be efficient, but it would be terrible to live in. A new image formed. This city looked different from the others. It was smaller, built into a canyon with buildings carved directly into the rock walls. Water fell in sheets from the canyon rim, powering turbines before flowing through the city in a network of streams and pools. Canyon Springs, Lisa said. Population 500,000. This city was built after a natural disaster destroyed the community that stood here before. The people could have moved somewhere safer, somewhere easier, but they chose to rebuild in the same spot. Why? Several delegates asked at once. Because this was home, Daniel said simply. Their ancestors had lived in this canyon for 300 years. Their stories were tied to this place, their memories. So we helped them rebuild, but we did it better than before. The new city can withstand the floods that destroyed the old one. It generates power from the water instead of fighting against it. And every building includes a memorial to what stood there before. The hologram showed a small plaza. In the center stood a sculpture made from pieces of the destroyed city. Broken stone and twisted metal arranged into something beautiful. Around it, plaques told the stories of people who had lived and died in the disaster. We do not forget our pain, Lisa said quietly. We build it into our cities. We make it part of who we are. This memorial reminds everyone in Canyon Springs why they design for resilience, why they plan for disaster, why they help each other. The past teaches the present how to build the future. Thon was studying the humans now with undisguised fascination. Your cities are therapy, he said. They heal your people. In a way, yes, Daniel agreed. We believe the spaces we live in shape who we become. A cold, efficient city produces cold, efficient people. A city that cares about its residents produces people who care about each other. The scene changed one final time. This city spread across a series of small islands, connected by bridges that seemed too delicate to be functional. The buildings were low and spread out, none taller than 4 or 5 stories. Everything was painted in bright colors that reflected in the water between the islands. Island Park Collective, Lisa said. This is our final example for this section. Population 200,000. The entire city is designed around a single principle. Every resident has access to water and growing space within a 3-minute walk of their home. This seems excessive, Zorthak commented. Why do they need growing space? Because growing food connects us to our world, Daniel said. Because tending plants is therapeutic. Because teaching children how to care for living things makes them better people. Because a city where everyone contributes to feeding each other builds strong communities. The hologram showed rooftop gardens and floating farms. Every building had space dedicated to growing food. The islands themselves were arranged to maximize sunlight and water access. Nothing was wasted, But nothing was purely utilitarian either. The gardens were beautiful. The bridges were works of art. The city fed itself while nurturing the souls of the people who lived there. "You sacrifice efficiency for emotion," Velthra observed. But the energy being did not sound critical anymore, just thoughtful. "We prefer to think of it differently," Lisa said. "We believe that emotion is efficient. Happy people work harder. Connected communities solve problems faster. Beautiful spaces inspire innovation. When you design cities for the whole person, not just their physical needs, you get better outcomes." The hologram showed Earth again, but this time it was different. The peaceful blue sphere began to display data overlays. Numbers appeared around the planet, glowing red and orange. "Before we go further," Daniel said, "we should clarify something about our world. We have noticed that many species here build their cities on stable planets, worlds with calm weather, minimal geological activity, predictable conditions." "Of course," Zorthak said. "Why would anyone choose to live somewhere unstable?" "We did not choose," Lisa replied. "We evolved there. Earth is our home. It is the only home we have, and according to galactic classification systems, it is rated as a Class 12 death world." Silence filled the chamber. The translator systems struggled for a moment, as if unsure they had processed the words correctly. Then chaos erupted. "Impossible!" someone shouted. "Class 12? Another voice called out. "Nothing sentient lives on Class 12 worlds." "Clearly something does," Thon said quietly, his old eyes fixed on the humans with new understanding. Daniel let the noise continue for a moment before raising his hand. "We have documentation if you want to verify, but perhaps it would be easier to show you. Computer, display atmospheric composition." Numbers appeared beside Earth. The delegates who understood chemistry made sounds of distress. Oxygen at 21%, nitrogen at 78%, other gases in trace amounts. "That oxygen level," Velthra said slowly, "is toxic to most species. It would corrode our structures, degrade our materials over time. How do you survive breathing that?" "We evolved in it," Lisa said. "Our bodies require it, but you are right about the corrosion. Everything we build has to withstand constant oxidation. The air itself slowly destroys our structures. We design for that." "Show them the gravity," Daniel said. A new number appeared, 9.8 meters per second squared. The chamber went quiet again. A delegate made of compressed gas actually retreated several steps, as if the number itself was dangerous. "That is," one of them managed to say, "that is nearly double galactic standard." "Yes," Daniel agreed. "We grow up in that gravity. We build in it. Every structure we create has to be strong enough to support itself under that constant pull. The towers you saw in our cities are not just fighting wind. They are fighting our planet's attempt to drag them down." The hologram changed. Now it showed storms, not the gentle rains the delegates had seen in Neo-Singapore, but walls of wind and water that moved across the ocean like living things. "Hurricanes," the label read. "Category 5. These form regularly in our tropical oceans," Lisa explained. "Wind speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, waves 20 meters high. They come every year, sometimes several in a single season." The image shifted to show a city in the path of one of these storms. The delegates watched as wind bent trees nearly to the ground. Water surged through streets. Buildings swayed but did not fall. The storm passed. The city remained. "Every coastal city on Earth is designed to survive this," Daniel said. "The swaying you saw is intentional. Rigid structures break. Flexible ones dance with the wind. We learned that lesson the hard way, over centuries of destruction and rebuilding." "Hard way?" asked the delegate, whose form seemed to be made of crystallized light. "Before we understood how to build for our world," Lisa said, Storms killed thousands of us at a time. Whole cities were erased. We had to learn or die, so we learned. The hologram showed a different kind of destruction now. The ground itself was shaking, tearing itself apart. Buildings crumbled, roads split open, mountains changed shape in seconds. Earthquakes, Daniel said. Earth's crust is not stable. It floats on a sea of molten rock, broken into pieces that grind against each other. This grinding releases energy. The ground moves, sometimes just a little. Sometimes enough to destroy everything standing on it. How do you build on such a world? Zorthak asked. His crystalline form had dimmed, all trace of superiority gone from his tone. Very carefully, Lisa answered. Watch. The hologram focused on a city as an earthquake struck, but this time they could see inside the buildings. The structures stood on foundations that moved independently of the frames above them. As the ground shook, the bases absorbed the motion. The buildings themselves barely trembled. Isolation technology, Daniel explained. The structure floats on its foundation. The earth can move all it wants underneath. The building stays relatively still. We also design every joint to flex, every beam to bend without breaking. An earthquake does not destroy one of our cities anymore. It just makes things shake for a minute. Anymore? Thon repeated softly. We lost entire cities before we figured it out, Lisa said. Hundreds of thousands of lives. But each disaster taught us something. We studied the wreckage. We learned what failed and why. Then we built better. The images kept coming. Volcanoes erupting, covering the land in molten rock. Tornadoes that picked up entire buildings and scattered them like toys. Floods that turned peaceful rivers into destroying forces. Blizzards that buried cities under meters of frozen water. Droughts that dried up lakes and cracked the earth. Your world is trying to kill you, Velthra said, something like awe in the energy being's voice. Our world is being itself, Daniel corrected. It is not hostile. It is just powerful, dynamic, constantly changing. We are the ones who chose to build permanent structures on a planet that does not believe in permanence. Show them Pacific Haven again, Lisa said. The floating city reappeared, but now the delegates saw it differently. They watched as massive waves crashed over portions of the city. They saw the structures flex and yield, letting the water pass through instead of fighting it. They saw how the city could disconnect sections if one was damaged, preventing the destruction from spreading. Pacific Haven can survive waves 40 meters high, Daniel said. It has to. The ocean generates them regularly. We call them rogue waves. They appear without warning and hit with enough force to snap steel. And your buildings on land, Thon said thoughtfully. The ones with all the plants and water management. Those are not just for beauty. No, Lisa agreed. They are survival systems. Plants stabilize soil during floods. They absorb water and release it slowly. Green roofs insulate against temperature extremes. Those beautiful gardens in Mumbai Skyway can keep people alive if the power fails. They produce oxygen and food. They filter toxins from the air. Every pretty feature in our cities has a practical purpose. The redundancy, a delegate said slowly. Your cities have so many backup systems. Because failure is not an option, Daniel said. When a hurricane hits, we cannot evacuate millions of people. When an earthquake strikes, we cannot move a city. Our structures have to work the first time, every time, or people die. So yes, we have redundancy. Every critical system has a backup. And the backup has a backup. The hologram showed New Orleans Delta, the city built to embrace flooding. Now the delegates saw it during an actual flood. Water rose through the streets exactly as designed. Turbines spun, generating power. Boats replaced cars. Life continued. This is not a city under attack, Velthra observed. This is a city functioning as intended during what should be a disaster. Exactly, Lisa said with a smile. We stopped fighting our world and started working with it. Floods bring water and nutrients. We capture them. Storms bring wind energy. We harvest it. Earthquakes reveal geological activity. We study it and improve our designs. Show them winter, Daniel said quietly. The scene changed to Arctic Station 7. The delegates saw a city buried in frozen water. Wind howled across the landscape, carrying particles of ice that could cut through exposed flesh. The temperature display showed numbers that made several delegates recoil. 70 degrees below your freezing point, Lisa said. For months at a time. The sun does not rise for half the year. Any exposed surface becomes so cold that touching it would freeze your flesh solid in seconds. And people choose to live there? Someone asked. 50,000 of them, Daniel confirmed. Because there are resources there, and beauty, and because humans do not give up just because something is hard. The view zoomed into one of the buildings. Inside, people went about their lives in comfort. Children played, adults worked, gardens grew under artificial light. Every building is a self-contained life support system, Lisa explained. If the power fails, if the heat stops, people have maybe 2 hours before the cold kills them. So we design with that in mind. Triple wall construction, geothermal backup heating, greenhouse levels that produce food and warmth, connection tunnels between all buildings so no one has to go outside. This is not a city, Thon said with wonder in his voice. This is a survival station. These are emergency shelters. This is normal for us, Daniel said. Every city on Earth is a survival station. They have to be. Our world gives us no choice. The hologram pulled back to show Earth again. But now the delegates saw the data differently. The storms were not occasional disasters. They were regular events. The earthquakes were not rare catastrophes. They were constant reminders that the ground itself could not be trusted. The temperature swings, the floods, the droughts, all of it was just Earth being Earth. Those beautiful cities you showed us, Zorthak said slowly, with the gardens and the art and the flexible designs. Our hardened survival stations, Lisa finished. Yes, every single one. The beauty is not decoration. It is part of the survival strategy. Happy people endure hardship better. Connected communities respond to disasters faster. Flexible structures survive what rigid ones cannot. You build the way you do because you have to, Velthra said. Not because it is theoretically better, but because anything else would fail. We build the way we do because we learned to, Daniel corrected. Our ancestors tried building rigid crystal towers like yours, Zorthak. The earthquakes knocked them down. They tried building isolated structures with maximum efficiency. The communities fell apart when disasters struck and no one helped each other. They tried building cheap and fast. Those cities washed away in the first flood. Ambassador Krell was the first to break the silence. His mandibles clicked together in a pattern that the translator interpreted as deep thought. He looked at the two humans standing before the council, then at the image of Earth still rotating slowly in the holographic display. I believe, he said carefully, that we owe you an apology. Daniel shook his head. You did not know. How could you? Your worlds are stable. Your environments are predictable. You build for conditions that do not change. That is logical for your circumstances. But we assumed our way was the only way, Thon said. The old reptilian delegate moved closer to the presentation area. We saw your methods and judged them primitive without understanding the forces that shaped them. Zorthak's crystalline body pulsed with shifting colors. My people have built the same way for 10,000 cycles, he said quietly. Our cities have never changed because our world has never challenged them. I am beginning to understand that this is not the strength I thought it was. Tell me something, Velthra asked, the energy being's form flickering with curiosity. Your redundant systems, your flexible designs, your focus on community and emotional well-being. Are these necessary only on death worlds? Or would they improve any city? Lisa and Daniel exchanged a look. This was the question they had hoped someone would ask. "We have thought about that a lot," Lisa said. "And we believe the answer is complex. Yes, our methods were born from necessity, but we think the principles behind them have value everywhere." "Explain," Krell prompted. Daniel activated a new set of images. They showed various alien cities they had been presented earlier in the day, but now with overlay proposals, suggestions for modifications based on human design principles. "Your crystal cities are beautiful," Daniel said, addressing Zorthak directly. "The harmonics they produce are something humans could never create. But what if between the spires, you added spaces for people to gather? What if the crystals could adjust their songs based on the emotional needs of the population?" Zorthak studied the proposed changes. His people's cities remained recognizable, but the empty spaces between spires had been filled with purpose. Gardens where beings could rest. Amphitheaters where the crystal songs could be experienced together. Flexible pathways that adapted to traffic patterns. The efficiency would decrease, Zorthak said slowly, but the utility would increase. These spaces would serve the people, not just house them. "Exactly," Lisa said. She turned to another delegate. "And your floating cities in the gas giant. They are marvels of engineering, but they exist in isolation. Each platform is separate. What if they were connected by flexible bridges that could detach during storms but provide community during calm periods?" The Korath delegate responsible for the floating cities studied the proposal. "We separated the platforms to prevent cascading failures," he said. "If one falls, the others survive." "We understand that logic," Daniel said, "but isolation has costs too. Your people live their entire lives on single platforms. They never meet anyone from other platforms except through digital communication. What does that do to your culture over generations?" The delegate was quiet for a long moment. "We have noticed a decline in innovation," he admitted. "Ideas do not spread as they once did. We attributed it to other factors." "Ideas need cross-pollination," Lisa said gently. "People need exposure to different perspectives. The safety you gain from isolation might cost you something equally valuable." Another delegate, a being that resembled living stone, spoke up. "Our cities are carved into asteroids, single massive structures housing millions. By your logic, we should add parks and gathering spaces, but we are made of stone ourselves. We do not need the emotional comforts of organic beings." "Maybe not," Daniel agreed. "But do your young ones ever see anyone outside their immediate family units? Do you have spaces where knowledge is shared between generations? Do you have places where your people can simply exist together without a specific purpose?" The stone delegate considered this. "Our young are educated in isolation. They receive data uploads. It is efficient." "But do they learn wisdom?" Thawne asked. "Forgive an old being's intrusion, but I have lived long enough to know that data is not the same as understanding. Your young ones might absorb facts perfectly, but how do they learn to apply those facts in unexpected situations?" "They often struggle with that," the stone delegate admitted. "We have programs to address the issue. Or you could have spaces where young and old interact naturally," Lisa suggested, "where problems are solved through conversation and debate, where failure is safe and learning is organic." Ambassador Krell raised one of his limbs for attention. "What you are suggesting," he said, "is a fundamental shift in how we think about cities, not as containers for populations, but as ecosystems that nurture those populations." "That is exactly what we are suggesting," Daniel confirmed. "And we understand it is a big change. Our own species took thousands of years to figure this out. We built terrible cities along the way, cities that made people miserable, cities that failed when tested. We learned slowly and painfully." "But you did learn," Velthra said. "And now you offer to share that knowledge freely." "Of course. Lisa said, surprised. Why would we not? Most species guard their technological advantages, a delegate observed. Knowledge is power. Power is leverage. Knowledge is not a resource that depletes when shared, Daniel said. If we teach you our methods, we lose nothing. But the galaxy gains cities that serve their people better. Everyone benefits. Thon made a sound that the translator interpreted as a laugh. And this, he said, is perhaps the most human thing you have said today. You see benefit to all as benefit to yourselves. Is that not obvious? Lisa asked. Better cities mean happier populations. Happier populations are more stable. Stable populations have fewer conflicts. Fewer conflicts mean more peaceful galaxy. We live in this galaxy too. We want it to be peaceful. Simple logic, Daniel added, but also human nature. We are social creatures. We succeed best when our communities succeed. We think that applies at a galactic scale too. Krell's mandibles clicked rapidly. I believe a vote is in order, he said. All those in favor of granting Earth the Council's highest commendation for architectural innovation. Every delegate present raised a limb, tendril, or energy field in approval. The vote was unanimous. Furthermore, Krell continued, I propose we establish a new collaborative program. Human architects will work with delegates from any species who wish to learn their methods. In exchange, humans will learn from us. Perhaps Earth's cities could benefit from crystal harmonics or energy-based construction. We would be honored, Daniel said. There is so much we can learn from all of you. Over the following days, the real work began. Lisa found herself teaching a group of Korath engineers how to design flexible connection systems for their floating cities. Daniel worked with Zorthak's people, showing them how to integrate gathering spaces into crystal structures without disrupting the harmonic properties they valued. Thon spent hours discussing philosophy with both humans, exploring the deeper principles behind their design choices. You build for resilience, he observed one evening, because your world taught you that nothing is permanent. But you also build for beauty, because you refuse to let hardship crush your spirits. That tension creates something remarkable. We never thought of it that way, Lisa admitted. But yes, I think you are right. We are stubborn. We insist on having both survival and quality of life. We refuse to choose. Because choosing would mean accepting defeat, Thon said wisely, and humans do not accept defeat. The collaborative projects produced unexpected results. The Korath floating cities gained connection bridges that could snap into place during calm weather and detach automatically during storms. But they also incorporated human ideas about shared spaces, creating platforms specifically designed for inter-community gatherings. Zorthak's people began modifying their crystal cities, adding what they called harmony gardens, spaces where the crystal songs could be experienced while sitting among living plants. The plants did not grow naturally on their world, so they had to be imported and carefully tended. But the Ven found that the gardens improved their well-being in ways they had not anticipated. We focused so long on perfection, Zorthak told Daniel one day, that we forgot about joy. The gardens are imperfect. They require maintenance. They change with seasons, but they make our people happy. That is worth the inefficiency. The energy beings of Velthra's species began experimenting with physical structures for the first time in their civilization's history. Not for themselves, but as gathering spaces where they could interact with physical species more easily. The structures were simple at first, but they served a purpose that pure energy constructs could not. We have been isolated, Velthra admitted to Lisa, existing in our higher dimensions. We told ourselves it was because physical beings could not understand us. But perhaps we were avoiding the effort of understanding them. 6 months after the initial presentation, the council gathered again. This time, the meeting was held on Earth. Delegates arrived to find themselves in a city specifically designed to accommodate all their various needs: crystalline chambers for the Ven, high-energy zones for the energy beings, heavy gravity sections and light gravity sections, aquatic areas and void-capable spaces. "This is New Geneva," Daniel explained as he gave the tour. "We built it in 4 months specifically for this summit. It is our attempt to apply everything we have learned from all of you." The city was a marvel of integration. Each section honored the needs and preferences of different species, but the sections connected seamlessly. A Ven could walk from their crystal chamber into a garden where they might meet a Korath delegate. An energy being could lower their frequency to visit a physical market where goods from across the galaxy were traded. "You have created a galactic city," Ambassador Krell observed. "A place where all species can live in comfort." "More than that," Thawne said quietly. "You have created a model for the future." The Council approved a massive joint project that day, an orbital station that would serve as a permanent meeting place for all galactic species. The design would incorporate principles from every civilization, but would be built using human adaptive architecture as the foundation. Because, as Velthra explained to the assembled delegates, humans have shown us that buildings should serve life, not the other way around. Every species will contribute their strengths, but the underlying philosophy will be human, flexible, redundant, beautiful, connected, alive. Construction began a year later. The station took shape slowly, a massive structure that orbited a neutral star. It had crystal spires that sang, energy fields that pulsed with life, floating sections and heavy sections and everything in between. Gardens grew in impossible places. Water flowed through sections designed by species that had never even seen liquid water before. Daniel and Lisa visited the construction site regularly, consulting with engineers from dozens of species. They watched their design principles spread and evolve, adapted to needs they had never imagined. "Do you think we changed the galaxy?" Lisa asked one evening as they floated in zero gravity, watching construction crews work on the station's outer shell. Daniel considered the question. Below them, a Korath engineer was teaching a Ven architect how to build flexible joints. Nearby, Thawne discussed emotional response theory with a group of energy beings. Everywhere they looked, species were learning from each other, sharing knowledge, building something together. "I think," Daniel said finally, "we reminded the galaxy of something it had forgotten. That cities are not about showing how advanced you are. They are about creating spaces where life can thrive. Once people remember that, the changes happen on their own." "So we just planted a seed," Lisa said. "We just shared what we knew," Daniel corrected. "What grows from that is up to everyone else." The station was completed 3 years after the initial council meeting. It had a name now, chosen through a galactic vote. They called it Harmony, not because everything was perfect there, but because differences existed together in balance. On opening day, delegates from every species gathered in the central plaza. The space was enormous, able to hold thousands of beings of all types. Above them, a transparent dome showed the stars beyond. Below them, gardens and water features and artistic installations from across the galaxy created a landscape that belonged to everyone and no one. Ambassador Krell spoke to the assembled crowd. "Today, we open not just a station, but a new chapter in galactic civilization. We have learned that strength comes not from perfection, but from resilience. That beauty is not frivolous, but essential. That communities thrive when they are connected, not isolated. We learned these lessons from the humans, who learned them from their world." Daniel and Lisa stood in the crowd, anonymous among thousands. They had done what they came to do, shared what they knew. The rest was up to the galaxy. As the ceremony ended and the delegates dispersed to explore their new shared home, Thawne found the two humans. The old being smiled, an expression that looked strange on his reptilian features, but was unmistakably warm. "You know what impresses me most about your species?" he asked. "What?" Lisa said. "You came from a world that tried to kill you every day. You could have become hard, closed, focused only on survival. Instead, you insisted on creating beauty, on building communities, on making spaces for joy even in the face of hardship. That is not just impressive. That is inspirational." Daniel looked around the station at the result of their shared vision. "We just did what made sense to us," he said. "Exactly," Thon replied. "And that is why your way of thinking will change the galaxy. Because it makes sense. Not complex sense. Not mathematical sense. Human sense. The kind of sense that remembers cities are built for living beings, not the other way around." The old being walked away, leaving the two humans alone in the crowd. Around them, the galaxy was beginning to learn what Earth had known all along, that the best cities are the ones that serve life in all its messy, beautiful, complicated reality. "So you build beautiful, redundant, flexible, connected cities," Thon said, "because those are the cities that survive." "Those are the cities where people survive," Lisa emphasized. "The structure is meaningless if the people inside it die. We design for human survival first. Everything else is secondary." The delegates stood in silence, processing what they had learned. Their perfect crystal cities would shatter in an earthquake. Their efficient, isolated structures would fail in a storm. Their mathematically optimized designs had never been tested against a world that actively challenged their existence. "And you thought we were primitive," Daniel said softly. "But surely," a delegate with a voice like grinding stones spoke up, "surely your approach has limits. What about extreme environments? What about places where survival itself is the challenge?" Daniel and Lisa exchanged a look. It was the opening they had been waiting for. "That," Daniel said, "is an excellent question, because the truth is, every environment on Earth is an extreme environment. At least that is how the rest of the galaxy sees it, which brings us to the next part of our presentation, the part where we explain why we build the way we do." The holographic display dimmed. The delegates waited, their attention finally and fully captured. "We need to tell you about Earth," Lisa said. Her voice was steady, but there was something in her tone that made the assembled aliens lean forward. "We need to tell you what it is really like to live on our world." The image of peaceful cities faded. In its place, something far more dramatic began to form. "But this requires incredible processing power," Veltra said. "The coordination alone would be massive." "Yes," Lisa agreed. "Every building in Mumbai Skyway is part of a network. They communicate with each other and with the people who live in them. The city learns what its residents need and adapts to provide it. It is not just alive, it is aware." The delegates stood in silence, absorbing what they had seen. 5 cities, each different, each responding to specific challenges and opportunities. None of them matched the geometric perfection of crystal spires or the mathematical precision of energy constructs. But there was something about them that was hard to dismiss. Thon spoke again, his old eyes studying the humans with new interest. "These cities," he said slowly, "they are not separate from your world. They are part of it." "Exactly," Daniel said. "We do not conquer nature. We join with it. Our cities are extensions of the ecosystems around them. They make those ecosystems stronger, just as the ecosystems support the cities. Everything is connected." "Inefficient," Zorthak repeated, but his tone had changed. The certainty was gone, replaced by something that might have been doubt. "Good," he thought. "Let them underestimate us. It makes the truth that much more satisfying." He activated his presentation device. Above him, a holographic image formed. It showed Earth from space, the blue and white marble spinning slowly in the darkness. Continents and oceans moved past in the eternal dance of a living world. "Before we begin," Daniel said, his voice steady and clear, "I want to thank the Council for this opportunity. We know we are new here. We know our methods seem strange to you. But we hope that by the end of this presentation, you will understand why we build the way we do." Lisa stepped up beside him. "We are going to show you 5 cities," she said. "Each one different, each one designed for a specific place and purpose. But all of them share something in common, something that we believe makes them special." "And what is that?" Zorthak asked. The crystals of his body vibrated with what might have been curiosity or condescension. Daniel smiled. "They are alive." The image changed. Earth disappeared, replaced by a sprawling city that seemed to breathe with the rhythm of the sea. The presentation had begun.